So, this episode is essentially talking about PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder for those who aren't familiar with it, and my experience of how I came to the realization that I had PMDD. Now, I genuinely believe that I had PMDD from when I started menstruating at about 13 years old. But of course, I had to be tormented by another hormonal condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, either known as PCOS or PCOS. And for that reason, I've always had irregular periods. And with that also came its challenges because the form of polycystic ovarian syndrome that I had meant that I had insulin resistance. So I was fairly overweight for the majority of my life. And that basically impeded on having a regular menstrual cycle. Long story short, I was pushed from pillar to post from doctors. Basically, in a nutshell, they all kept telling me to lose weight. And in my early 30s, I decided to go for bariatric surgery, which I funded myself privately. And before it was a fad, before everyone was going to Turkey to have weight loss surgery, I took it upon myself after I did a lot of research to see the benefits of bariatric surgery if you have PCOS. And I lost weight. But then when I did hit my target weight, it regulated my periods. And now that in my like early to mid 30s, my periods have regulated, I felt like I reverted back into a teenager. I was going through all kinds of hormonal mood swings. And I wasn't naive to think that there wasn't going to be any type of like side effects as such when you lose weight, because a lot of your muscle in your body stores a lot of hormones, and when that's getting released, it's only natural to for your body to respond in a certain way. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Not only was I contending with body dysmorphia, I had PMDD, and I had no idea I had PMDD. And my symptoms actually started from debilitating depression and anxiety, a lot of rage. Like, I can be an angry person. Like, I'm a fiery Aries. It doesn't take much for me to start fighting an empty house. But then when you have PMDD, you will start a fight in an empty house. And it was just unexplainable. And I knew it was related to my hormones, but I couldn't really pinpoint it. So for about at least 9 months, I was experiencing progressively worse symptoms, which ranged from depression and anxiety, um, completely withdrawn, overeating, joint pain, muscle aches, hyperinsomnia, insomnia. I would cry uncontrollably. I started having panic attacks. And I think the worst one was when the suicidal ideation started. So you have to be able to track your cycle. And by that, I mean you need to consecutively, for 3 months minimum, track the symptoms of your cycle. So you will know from when your period starts, that's essentially day one of your cycle, and you will begin to feel some form of relief. If not on day one, approximately day three. I'm currently on day 4 of my menstrual cycle, and I could start to feel the brain fog lifting from day 3. And I can think more clearly. I can articulate myself. I'm so much more productive. I've got a lot more energy. I don't feel low. There isn't feelings of despair. And it was all of those things combined for 3 months that I did track that I realized I was like, okay, there's something not quite right here. And once I started to track those symptoms, and as women, you know what we do? We go on the internet. We're always searching, Googling, having a look at what we can find. And from there, I found that my algorithm started sending me information posts, especially on Instagram. TikTok wasn't around back then. But when I did have a look on Instagram, eventually after about a year, I realized that, there was something called PMDD, and all of the symptoms really resonated with me because it's very different from PMS. PMS is a very mild form. And I don't want to disregard anyone who experiences PMS because it's relative and very individual to each person. Some people experience PMS, some people experience premenstrual tension, which is PMT, extreme PMS, and then there's PMDD. Now, I'm focusing on PMDD because that's my experience and that's my lived experience, and I've had to learn to navigate it with not just living with the demonic condition, but learning how to coexist with it, learn how to advocate for myself, empower others to be able to speak to their healthcare practitioners, i.e., primary care, i.e., your GP, being able to speak to secondary care, which is hospitals, when you get referred to the appropriate service to support you to get the treatment that you need. Because unfortunately, we are the ones who are the patient experts, not our healthcare providers, because they just don't have enough training, knowledge. If your GP does know about it, they're a unicorn, by the way, because it's very, very rare. Like, they're an exception to the rule. When I first realized that I had PMDD, it's been nearly 8 years now. It was so much in its infancy that it was completely unheard of. No one knew about it. It was like, if I went to my GP, they would be like, "Are you sure you're not stressed?" Yeah, I'm stressed because I'm being tormented by my hormones. But essentially, being able to understand and recognize that you have PMDD is the first step. That is really, really important. And I think once you understand the frequency and the nature of your PMDD, that is where you can start to truly navigate it. And the way I did that was being able to come to terms. I really had to learn to accept that this condition isn't going anywhere. My periods aren't going anywhere. The cause of PMDD is still unknown, but the best way that I can describe it in layman's terms is that it is a visceral response. Your body is having a visceral reaction to the hormonal fluctuations. It's not a hormonal imbalance. That's factually incorrect. It is when your brain releases a signal for your ovaries to release an egg. And in that duration, hormones will fluctuate. So you will have progesterone, you will have estrogen, you will have testosterone. And when all of these hormones are actually fluctuating, your body hates you with your life, mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's the scary thing about PMDD. Things like PMS and extreme PMS, they're very mild comparatively. They don't actually debilitate or compromise the quality of your life. Like, I've still experienced extreme PMS now that I am down a certain pathway for treatment. So some cycles I still have PMDD and some cycles I have extreme PMS. And the contrast between the two of what I can navigate and what I can't is the difference between heaven and earth. When I have extreme PMS, I can function. I can pretty much function. I can do all the things that I want to do. And by that, I mean, I go to work, I hold down a career, I socialize, I still am enthusiastic and engaged with life. I'm present. But when I fall into PMDD, that's when the despair kicks in. That's when the paranoia kicks in. That's when the sensitivity kicks in. And I'm talking mentally, physically, and emotionally. Sensitivity isn't just limited to, oh, I'm sensitive to heightened smells. It is sensitive to sounds, sensitive to noises. You're sensitive to foods that you can eat. You are sensitive to the sun, like your skin will feel like it's pinching. Um, and then that's just some of the physiological aspect of things. That doesn't even include the mental aspect of it. When you've got depression, you've got low mood, you've got anxiety, you're half your personality. So I'm fairly bubbly, I'm approachable, I'm fun loving, I have a zest for life. But then 2 weeks of the month when I had PMDD, I lost all of those things. I was a shell. I was a complete and utter shell. I didn't recognize myself. I'd be crying uncontrollably. I was still holding down a career. I still am holding down a career. But the difference is, on those occasions when I was experiencing PMDD and I wasn't having any form of medication or treatment for it, I would be having panic attacks in my car before I'd go into the office. And by profession, I teach. So imagine having to have a whole panic attack in the car, pull yourself together, put on your makeup, and go in and teach for the day. It was draining. It's truly, truly exhausting. And that also exacerbates your symptoms too. So essentially, PMDD requires a lot of consistent and careful preparation and time. You need time to put in a lot of self-care to be able to manage it. It's not a joke. Like, women are completely disregarded. Women's health is, I would say we're a marginalized group. And the curriculum itself, the system of the NHS, ironically, I work for them, but the medical misogyny is rife. So many studies are coming out about how much money and funding goes into being able to treat men. And a lot of the treatments that have been offered or are being offered to women were done on men. And it blows my mind. So unfortunately, the reality of the situation is we have to advocate for ourselves. And when we do go to our GP, we have to go armed. You have to go armed with a case. It's like you're going in front of a judge and you need to provide them with hard evidence of the frequency, the pattern, the nature of your symptoms. How does it impede the language that you use? My 7 to 8 year career in the NHS has taught me so much about something called health literacy. It's that same language that I've adopted when I speak to healthcare professionals to be able to get the outcome that I want. It's never guaranteed, by the way, because there is a lot of fight that I still have to put up with to be able to get the treatment and the care that I want and I need. But it really, really helps. On the next episode, I am basically going to talk about how to speak to your GP, how to have a conversation with them, get the treatment that you want, and essentially what the treatment pathway is. This isn't medical advice, but what this definitely is guidance on being able to learn how to navigate the treatment pathways, what your options are, and what I did from experience.